The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
You're now about to witness the truth.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am, as always, the same guy, just a different day. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon, and you can't see me on YouTube, can you? Now you should be able to. There you go. Now you can see me. All right. Welcome to the show. I do this thing on Monday through Thursday where I talk about politics. And if you're here for the first time, welcome. Most likely you've been here before, so thank you for coming back. That's all I got. All right, let's talk about the news. And thanks to all my patrons. Can never forget you guys. You guys make the world go round. And so for that, I want to say thank you. We will be doing a bonus show tonight. More than likely, the bonus show is going to be about President Obama setting it up for corporations to go to Mars. So if you want to talk about that, the political implications, and like, who would have thought it would be Obama who would set up corporations to take over space instead of the Federation? I mean, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But there's a lot happening in international and domestic news. Man, my dude, Tommy Ford, Tommy from Martin, man, I just got word that he died at the age of 52. Tommy, if you know Tommy never had a job, even though Tommy had a lot of jobs. But, you know, for years, that was a running gag about Tommy Ford. Matter of fact, I might as well talk about him at the top of the show because, man, that really got to me. He was only 52 years old. Tommy Ford was amazing actor. If you had to have known him from Martin, but he was on Harlem Nights. He was on a couple of movies. He did a lot of stage plays, and he just got word this afternoon. Not quite sure. I did not get any reports as to exactly how or why, but he was put on life support earlier today. That word did come out that he was on life support, and something told me, man, I was like, you know, they announced that he was on life support, and I just had that feeling that that he wasn't going to make it, and surely enough, he died. He was a father. He had a family, some sons. He was a well-beloved. So according to, and I hate to use this source, but sometimes they're the fastest. According to TMZ, Tommy had been recovering from a knee replacement surgery, and he was hospitalized early on Wednesday. He had been hospitalized over the weekend with complications that developed from the surgery and had been placed on life support. And then finally, rumors start spreading around that he had passed away, and ultimately he died. And man, I don't know. I met Tommy, my sisters and I, we met Tommy back in 2000. He was hosting an event, and bigger than life, larger than life, very kind dude. You know, he wasn't like a superstar, but he was a star, right? And he was a good guy, man. Tommy Ford, dead at the age of 52. And just, you know, I still watch Martin to this day. Anytime it comes on, I don't care what time it comes on, I cut it on with my wife. We sit there and we watch it. And I don't even watch a lot of TV, but if Martin is on, I'm turning it there. And Harlem Nights, I pop that in my DVD player every now and then. And you see Tommy there. And you see Tommy look the same. He never aged until recently. He started to look like he got a little bit older. But rest in power, my brother. We definitely going to miss you. Your talent, your smile, your energy. And we know, despite evidence to the contrary, despite all the rumors, we knew that Tommy had a job. We knew that Tommy was a hard-working brother, and he made a lot of people proud. So just wanted to start there. Since I mentioned it, I couldn't not talk about it because of the, I don't know. So anyway, let's move on before I get sad even more sad. Let's talk about something that'll make me angry. I like it more when I'm angry than being sad. Sad is not fun. I want to talk about Jerry Falwell Jr. for a second. Let me talk about this dude and get this out at the top. So a lot of new people to the Benjamin Dixon Show didn't realize that I really, most of the people who got to know me over the last few months really know me as the black progressive, as a person who talks about black issues, Black Lives Matter, economics, justice, those kind of things. And not a lot of people knew that I got my start in politics dissecting religion and politics. And the reason it's super relevant is because 1/3 of Americans' voting population identify as Christian. And a large percentage of those people vote based on their religious beliefs. And those that specifically vote on their religious belief vote as Republicans. I believe over 85% of Republicans identify as evangelicals, if I don't have my numbers transposed. So you have a large population of Americans who are voting in order to instill their religious beliefs in your life. Now, I don't know if I'm religious anymore, but I'm definitely still consider myself to be a Christian, definitely raising my family the way I was raised, right? I'm, I used to do the whole church thing, and that was me, that was my life. So, that's where I come from. But the one thing I know that's more important than anything else is that we all have to be free to live our lives however we choose to. And so I'm uniquely fit to tackle the hypocrisy that has been the religious right and the moral majority. And there's no greater example of the emptiness of this commitment to vote for the Republican Party out of some sense of morality or out of some compulsion to try to impose your religious beliefs on America. There's no greater example of how fraudulent that is than the enduring support of the religious right and the evangelicals for Donald Trump. And it came out today. Man, I feel like my voice is still trembling a little bit because of Tommy. But anyway, it came out today that Jerry Falwell Jr., son of the founder of the Moral Majority and president of Liberty University, Jerry Falwell Jr. is the president. Jerry Falwell was a former president who passed away not too long ago. Too much celebration. I can't believe how many people actually were dancing a jig over somebody. Anyway, Jerry Falwell Jr. came out today saying that he wouldn't care if Donald Trump was actually guilty of sexual assault. He would still support Donald Trump. Mike Pence speaking, I believe he was speaking at Liberty University, said that it's more important for them to focus on the fact that Trump would be appointing judges who would respect the sanctity of life and who would respect the Second Amendment, which I'm not sure exactly how the hell the Second Amendment is something that's critical to Christian values, but okay. And then, of course, the subtext of all of that is their opposition to marriage equality. So in the midst of Donald Trump demonstrating in no uncertain terms that he is anything but a decent human being, let alone what Christians expect Christians to be like, right? If you ever went to Sunday school, Donald Trump is what the Sunday school teacher would call the hellion, right? There's nothing. Donald Trump shows no remorse, shows no contrition. There's nothing about him that suggests that the religious community should look to him to be some type of moral leader or be the person to carry their religious values and instill them in your life. So this hypocrisy, at what point do you stop and realize that I've jumped the shark here, Jerry Falwell Jr.? I've gotten to the point where you've gotten to the point where your religious views mean nothing so long as you can serve your political end. So while you're simultaneously trying to shove your religious views down the throats of people who don't want your religious views. You are sidestepping your own religion in order to serve your political end. And this conversation matters because you have millions of voters who follow this type of charlatan. You have millions of people who believe the type of drivel that comes out of his mouth, Ralph Reed, Tony Perkins, James Robinson, these old vanguard of the moral majority who have enriched themselves. They have become financially wealthy by delivering the religious vote for the Republican Party. And now the Republican Party is being led by somebody who has zero morality. Like, I don't care. Judge it based on any religion, right? Judge it based on no religion. Just Donald Trump has demonstrated to the world that he has zero sense of dignity, no remorse for anything. He already says that he won't apologize for anything. He has demonstrated that instead of showing that he is truly sorry for what he did, he doubled down by spitting in the face and using those women on debate night on Sunday night just to throw it up in the face of Bill and Hillary Clinton. Now, whether you agree with his tactic or not, we can all agree that that is not the signal of a man who is remorseful and has changed his ways and wants to seek forgiveness so that he could be some type of moral leader. What that signals to me, and the religious right's enduring support for him, particularly Jerry Falwell, Ralph Reed, Tony Perkins, all the rest of those guys, what it signals to me is that their religion doesn't mean anything as soon as it starts to interfere with their politics. And you know why else this is true? Because while they're so busy trying to shove their sense of sexual morality on the world, right? Right. They want to oppose same-sex marriage. They want to tell you how to have sex. They want to tell you whether or not you can have an abortion. They want to impose their sense of sexual morality on you and what their biblical definition of sexual morality, but they completely disregard any sense of economic morality, economic justice, social justice. They completely rewrite the Bible in terms of the socialist perspectives that are in the Bible, the being your brother's keeper and actually providing for the poor and the indigent and the homeless and the widow and the orphan. They completely obliterate that section and focus only on sexual morality because that conveniently fits inside of the Republican paradigm. And so long as it easily fits inside of the Republican Party orthodoxy, they can continue to make their money by delivering their congregations to the Republican Party. And the reason it matters to you and I who see through this is because they are a fierce voting bloc that still affects our lives every single day. And they will seek and go after someone like Antonin Scalia, who will continue to pass and rule on decisions that would affect our lives for generations to come. All the while following a guy who is clearly anything but moral. 857-600-0518 if you want to get in on the conversation. All right, let's skip over. Let's skip across the pond. Well, a little bit more than the pond. Let's talk about the Yemeni rebels. The Houthi rebels. Actually, let me pull this up. Excuse me, I need to probably some water here. All right, so interesting story. We briefly discussed it on Monday night, but on Monday, the Houthi rebels fired two missiles at a U.S. Navy destroyer in the Red Sea, and as a result, actually, the missiles did not hit. The missiles did not strike anything. They fell before they made contact with the destroyer, but the effort was made. We discussed that a little bit. On today, the same exact thing happened. The rebels shot another missile at a destroyer, and it did not hit. However, this time, the U.S. Said that it considered retaliation. Now, the reason the rebels, obviously, if you've been paying attention at all, you know the ongoing war that Saudi Arabia has with Yemen. And as a part of that, there have been some devastating strikes of hospitals, of civilians, thank you, of just all sorts of war crimes. I believe the United Nations said that they want to investigate them as war crimes. And so it makes sense that if the U.S. is involved, even indirectly, for the Houthi rebels to retaliate for a number of reasons. One, not because they're actually going to stop the United States, right? I don't think that they are under any illusion that they can stop the United States or beat the United States. But what it does is if they retaliate against the United States, it actually brings a different light to the situation where people who previously were not paying attention all of a sudden realize that the United States has been hit by the Houthi rebels in Yemen. And then you have to start unpacking it. Like, it really brings light to not those of us who have been paying attention all along, because those of us paying attention all along have been questioning why the United States is backing Saudi Arabia in this conflict that has devastated the region. It is not just a military crisis, it's a humanitarian crisis, right? So it's not as though we need to know about it, but there's a large swath of American population who are completely oblivious to America's involvement in this campaign in Yemen. And so I think by the rebels striking, I think one of their only strategies could be for, or rather to bring attention to the issue. But as of the funeral that was bombed over the weekend, where 140 people were killed, according to the Wall Street Journal, there was a leak that said that the U.S. is potentially going to shift away from providing support to Saudi Arabia, right? Because of how atrocious the bombing was over the weekend of the funeral, which killed 140 people, funeral goers. The United States is just reviewing their involvement, providing material support, providing technical support, et cetera. Now, the question is, if you look at the U.S.'s response today, saying that they were looking or considering now retaliating, the question is, will this attempted strike by the rebels in Yemen use up all the goodwill and cause America to say, oh, well, you want to shoot at us, we'll continue our campaign? I don't know. I don't think any reasonable person can look at this effort, this quote unquote strike, and say it was something so drastic that America has to take a hard line in Yemen. And then two, what else are they going to do? Right? It's not like America is going to escalate this further than what Saudi Arabia is already bombing them out of existence. Right. So whether or not, I don't know. I mean, maybe the Yemenis haven't gotten the message from the Wall Street Journal to realize that the United States is considering pulling out and ending their support of Saudi Arabia. Ultimately, that's what needs to happen. We are becoming, or not becoming, we are complicit with war crimes by virtue of Saudi Arabia. And the United States, if we want to have any goodwill in the international community, and we want to ever be able to tell, not that this has ever stopped us before, but you know, let's pretend as though we have principles. If we want to be able to tell the world and other nations, and tell Syria in particular and Russia to not commit war crimes, we cannot stand idly by and be complicit with war crimes that Saudi Arabia is committing in Yemen. All right, 857-600-0518. We'll take the first caller. Caller, you are live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, Ben, it's PJ from North Carolina.
PJ, how's it going, man?
Surprised to hear that you say you don't know if you're religious anymore. I actually caught you. Like I discovered you by a post you made in June of last year about the whole gay marriage thing.
Yeah.
You being in support of marriage equality and you being a Christian, that was an interesting juxtaposition. So
well, let me be clear. Right? Like I make a really big distinction between being religious and my Christian faith. Like I'm 100% Christian and have really no logical reason to stop being, right? Even when I follow my faith down this logical analysis where I'm a critical analysis where I have nothing, I still decide that, I'm going to maintain my faith. I just don't participate in the religious activities anymore. I can't tell you the last time I participated in a religious service of any type. Not that I won't, I just haven't. So that's what I mean by that.
Fair enough. I'm glad you brought up the topic. I'll be brief about the whole Donald Trump religious right thing, because I was actually having a discussion with some people online, and we couldn't really come to an agreement. I'm trying to understand personally where the moral right wing at this point that support Donald Trump, where do they go from here? Because as far as I know, and I'm not trying to be like snarky, but as far as I know, and please correct me on this because I know you've studied the history of it, up until the whole same-sex marriage controversy, I guess, the religious right and the moral right were doing a plain, outright moral superiority argument. Like, you can't have gay marriage, you can't have polygamy, you can't have abortions, you can't have reproductive rights because it's immoral.
Right.
Then, when gay culture became more acceptable, it suddenly became religious freedom. It suddenly became we should have the right to choose and practice how we will, rather than ours is outright better. It's more there. It was a pseudo bygones be bygones, live and let live type thing. Though obviously it was not the case because of all the politicians and that were two-faced on the whole deal. Now Donald Trump, he's an authoritarian, plain and simple. There's no way he's going to give any quarter to anyone he doesn't agree with, or by proxy that don't agree with his donors. Because he's obviously led by money first. So even if he doesn't think that transsexual women using the women's bathroom is a big deal, if he does succeed or get a lot of money from the religious right or the moral right, then he's going to do something about it. Yeah. In that regard. So now there's no longer this is sort of conjecture. So there's with him, there is no longer a religious freedom or liberty argument because he's a strong man. Yeah. He's an authoritarian. But
except
with him and his activity.
Let me interject there. Except he's an authoritarian for them. I don't want to say most, but a lot of people are okay with the idea of a dictator so long as they're benevolent to their issue. But go ahead.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. Like the facade of religious liberty goes out the window with him. And at the same time, with his history of being sexually immoral with his actions and words and his appearances and whatnot, there's no longer a moral superiority argument. Right. So the people that are sticking with him, where do they go from there? Are they just going to outright say, we just want a dictator to have others do as we say, not as we do?
This is the question. This is a great question. I don't think they can go anywhere except for evolve. And I think they wouldn't appreciate that, right? They need to evolve to the point where their political participation can't be based on forcing their religion on someone else through legislation. It can't, right? In other words, they can't participate in politics if their participation requires legislating morality based on their Bible. Right. They need to participate in politics based on the things that the government should be involved in, which is economics, foreign policy, and climate change, those types of things that we actually should be doing, those non-religious secular activities that affect every single one of our lives. We see a small trend in that direction in young evangelicals. And this is what I try to stress to a lot of friends of mine that are atheists, because I have a lot of friends who are atheists. I try to stress to them, our goal shouldn't be to end religion, because that's going to make religion grow. Our goal should be to have, just like people tell us all the time, right? the moderate Muslims should intervene with the fundamentalists and address the issue. So it's going to require moderate Christians to intervene and help them understand, the fundamentalist Christians understand, is that we have to live and coexist with people who we are going to totally disagree with because of our religion, but we don't try to force our religion through law. And our participation in politics has to be such. I say that they have to evolve. We have to evolve because they have nowhere else. They have nowhere else to go, in my opinion. Go ahead.
No, and as a final note, it's going to be hard for them to evolve, considering that a lot of fundamentalists don't believe in evolution.
That's exactly why I said it's going to be hard for them to even accept that, man. Thanks for the call, man.
No problem, man.
857-600-0518. I forgot to put that screen up. Oh, well. All right. Let's jump to another story. Yep. Checking you guys out in the chat room. I don't get to come to the YouTube chat room a lot anymore, but I'm there. I see you guys talking. A lot of good conversations. So let's talk about Hillary Clinton and her Saudi Arabia email. And actually, let's talk about that. Or do I? See, I'm tempted to take this caller. I feel like talking tonight. Actually, I'm going to take this caller. Call, and then we'll get to the emails. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, Benjamin, this is Steve. How you doing?
Doing great, man. How's it going?
Good. Just real quick about your evolving comment. I just think that the world is becoming a more inclusive place. Our country is becoming more inclusive, where it's not becoming acceptable to be racist or sexist or misogynist.
Yep.
And the people that are following Trump's candidacy, they have a choice. Like, they can choose to evolve and become more inclusive and embrace a Christianity that's more inclusive, and embrace a whiteness that's more inclusive and a straightness that's more inclusive. And they can do that either because they're exposed to it, or they just choose to be more inclusive. And we're going to have, no matter what we do in this country, we're going to have people that are going to fight it to the bitter end, like to the death. But I think they're on the losing cause of history, and
absolutely,
that gives me a little bit of hope that even though this candidacy is so ugly, it's almost like the last grasp, and it's those last people that are going to either choose to evolve or not. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for the call, man. That's a great comment. I don't think I have anything else to add on top of that. Glad I took the call. Except for the alternative is for them to go the way of the Scopes trial. In, I believe, early 20th century, there was a trial that was basically put religion on trial, and it exposed such a negative view of religion, that of evangelicals in particular, that they kind of they had to disappear, and they disappeared into the ether of irrelevance all the way up until really the 70s, with the religious revival and the mainstreaming of religion again. So they're either going to evolve or they're going to be relegated to the dredges of society, while more inclusive Christians and more inclusive white people and more inclusive straight people are... I have no idea. I just lost. This is the first time in a long time that I've ever lost my train of thought. The rest of us will be here. The rest of us will be here and showing the world the only way that we're going to be able to coexist. Because, again, we're not going to be able, you're never going to get rid of me, except when I die. But you're never going to get rid of people like me who are we just hold on to our faith because we just want to, right? We just want to. And so what would be the point of trying to purge the earth of religion when people like me are your greatest allies in making a more inclusive society? All right, now let's talk about Hillary Clinton, someone we can all agree to hate. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Not really, sort of. Anyway, Hillary Clinton emails. So I still believe that there was not the Podesta email leak, and I believe so far the majority of it has been like kind of weak tea. But there's one particular email that well, before I even go to that particular email, regardless of the emails being weak tea and the speeches being weak tea, the reaction from Hillary positive media and the reaction from the players, the party, has been so reactionary. They've reacted as though it is traumatic, right? They've gone full propaganda. Like, this is totally Putin, and they've even floated out that the emails were inaccurate when in actuality the leaks rather were inaccurate, when nothing inside of the leaks itself are inaccurate. So you either had people who are just going full propaganda to try to suppress any negative press about it, or you had those who completely ignored it. Now, those two stories are stories in itself. Their reaction to these emails and to these speeches has been ridiculous, and it's been obscene, and it has undermined, once again, right? No surprise, it has undermined their journalistic integrity, if they have any left at all. Now, that's my opinion of the majority of the emails and the leaks and the speeches. There's one particular email that Hillary wrote to John Podesta in 2014, and I just want to read the quote here for you, where she said, "We need to use our diplomatic and more traditional intelligence assets to bring pressure on the governments of Qatar and Saudi Arabia, which are providing clandestine financial and logistic support to ISIL and other radical Sunni groups in the region." So this is Hillary Clinton writing to her campaign manager, John Podesta, conceding that Qatar, yes, and Saudi Arabia, ding, 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 are providing material, clandestine financials, and logistic support to ISIS. Yet and still, the Clinton Foundation, I mean, not even just the Clinton Foundation, right? The Clinton Foundation, cozy, receiving millions upon millions of dollars from Saudi Arabia, but the United States of America maintains this partnership with Saudi Arabia, involved in their war against Yemen, knowing full and well that not only did Saudi Arabia have fingerprints and footprints in 9/11, but they also have connections to ISIS. I said it last week, and it's worth mentioning again. When we talk about a nation's interest, any nation, I don't care what nation, there's nobody we won't go to bed with in order to get something done that we deem necessary. And this is the perfect example. I'm not 100% sure, and I just really haven't taken the time to research it. So maybe our project for next week would be, why do we still tolerate any relationship with Saudi Arabia? What benefit do we get from Saudi Arabia that we could not get from another partner in the region? Because for us to still be in bed with them, with their involvement in 9/11 and their involvement with ISIS, per Hillary Clinton, realistically, our next president of the United States, we fully know this, and yet we still have this commitment to them that is, at this point, perverse. So John Brennan, speaking at a 9/11 memorial and museum in New York, he recently called the Saudis among our very best counterterrorism partners globally. All right, Tony Podesta, John Podesta's brother, he's a Washington lobbyist and head of the Podesta Group. He was paid $140,000 a month by the Saudi government, a fee through the end of 2016 as a consultant. $140,000 a month. 15 of the 19 hijackers on 9/11 were Saudi citizens. I mean, we got some splaining to do here. Yes, Hillary Clinton has some splaining to do. The Podesta Group, they have some explaining to do. But the United States of America has to explain this commitment to Saudi Arabia that transcends them funding and being connected with 9/11 and funding our current enemy, ISIS. If you already know the answer as to why, I mean, to me, because at some point, I always reduce it down to everyone is a rational actor. I honestly do not believe, and maybe it's naive, but I don't believe that people are irrational in the sense that they are going to do something that's against their own best interest. Now, Hillary's best interest clearly conflict with my best interest in a lot of ways, right? But at the end of the day, she's maintaining this relationship with them for a positive gain for her. She's not maintaining this relationship to her detriment. I don't think that even if they were blackmailing her about something, it's still a calculated decision to maintain this relationship through the Clinton Foundation. The United States of America as a whole, likewise, we're maintaining this relationship with them because we think it's a net positive. I'm just curious as to what the hell is that net positive at this point? One that we know that they have connections with terrorism. They are a state sponsor of terrorism I'll just say it, hyperbole or whatever, state sponsor of terrorism. And yet we consider them a partner against terrorism. What is the net positive that we get from Saudi Arabia that we could not get from another partnership in the region? That if we can answer that question, then we can understand why we're willing to tolerate this sponsor of terrorism and still consider them an ally while we fight terrorism. But that was the most significant email that came out of the bunch, in my opinion, because that really puts a transparent light on the reality that we knowingly get involved with regimes that are not just detrimental in their region, they're detrimental to our national interests on some level. And I'm just, again, to restate it and to be redundant, what do they benefit our national interests such that we maintain a partnership with them? 857-600-0518. Have another caller on the line. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, Ben, this Bryce. In terms of Saudi Arabia, I think it's mainly about the money. I just think it's about the money interests and the money between each countries. And Saudi Arabia does some small counter-terrorism to America's liking. So while they do all the crazy stuff and the small stuff in between, well, we'll just, work on the money situation. I think it's still kind of a financial type of gain either way. It's kind of wild. And another point about the religious aspect of things, it's funny how these same people that's all religious and twist the word and do all these type of things are still talking about Obama being a Muslim. He's a Muslim and all, and we got to get all the Muslims out. We got to do all this. It's kind of like, it's really, really sad. And now they're supporting Trump. It's like it all fits together, and it's really sad. They just twist, like we talked about before, how they twist and turn, and it's just really sad. And I don't know if it's ever going to change.
Yeah, that's a good question. Will it? No, it won't. I don't know. Hopefully, I have a great hope. Twitter. Have a great hope that it will change. But I'm idealistic in a lot of ways. I'm not too idealistic about that. I think it's going to be okay. Great. This is actually a great follow up to the story. Thanks, Max. So this is an official statement from Liberty University. Let me put Jerry Falwell Jr. back on the screen. All right. So this just came out from Liberty University, and I'll read. It's pretty long, so I'll skip through it and try to get the best parts of it. But this is an official statement, not from the university, but from a student group, and it's a statement against Donald Trump. So like I said it earlier, it's the younger evangelicals, people who refuse to let go of their faith. They're going to maintain their faith, but they also are going to maintain a more inclusive approach to society, right? That's kind of the best we can hope for. So anyway, let me read this. In the months since Jerry Falwell Jr. endorsed him, Donald Trump has been inexorably associated with Liberty University. We are Liberty students who are disappointed with President Falwell's endorsement and are tired of being associated with one of the worst presidential candidates in American history. Okay, this is good. This is good already. Donald Trump does not represent our values, and we want nothing to do with him. A majority of Liberty students, faculty, and staff feel as though we do. Donald Trump received a pitiful 90 votes from. Okay, this is a good letter. I'm sorry. Donald Trump received a pitiful 90 votes from Liberty students in Virginia's primary election, a colossal rejection of his campaign. Nevertheless, President Falwell eagerly uses his national platform to advocate for Donald Trump. While he occasionally clarifies that supporting Trump is not the official position of Liberty University, we know it is his title and president of the largest Christian university in the world that gives him political credentials. Ding, 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 ding. Associating any politician with Christianity is damaging to the gospel of Jesus Christ. But Donald Trump is not just any politician. He has made his name by maligning others and bragging about his sins. Not only is Donald Trump a bad candidate for president, he is actively promoting the very things that we as Christians ought to oppose. Let me just stop and give him an applause there. Yeah. So let's see. I'm going to skim because it's a very long letter. Here's a takeaway. Because our president has led the world to believe that Liberty University supports Donald Trump, we students must take it upon ourselves to make it clear that Donald Trump is absolutely opposed to what we believe and does not have our support. Hear, hear. Now, it's a start, right? Because my next question is, who won the primaries? Because if it was Ted Cruz, I still got a problem with it. But at least they're recognizing the cognitive dissonance of supporting Donald Trump in the name of religion. So at least they caught that. We'll talk about Ted Cruz and John Kasich another time, and then we'll talk about how Jesus was a socialist. Ultimately, we'll get to that the next time. But good job though, Liberty students. Good job. Well done. We still have to talk about Syria. I only have about 15 minutes left, but I'll take this caller here. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hi, Ben. This is Ace from Oakland.
Hey, how's it going?
That was a great letter, by the way, from the Liberty students.
Yeah.
I think that in terms of the Falwell situation, that what we're looking at is a particular exercise of political Christianity. Mm-hmm. And I think the point is not for those who are practicing political Christianity, at least this particular slant of political Christianity, that their purpose is to use Christianity to seize state power. So the question is not whether or not they're what they're doing adheres to biblical doctrine. It is, how can I use biblical doctrine or Christianity as a means to take state offices, take federal offices, etc., and so that we can get into conversation around whether or not they are being true Christians. I think that gets us away from thinking about just the ways in which they are using Christianity for secular purposes, and that is to, again, to seize state power. So, their point, so there's no contradiction, in other words. It's like, okay, yeah, well, it doesn't adhere to biblical doctrine, or they'll twist and turn in the wind around it. But that's not their point. Their point is to take over state offices and not only to have power for themselves, but even to think in terms of how to implement an authoritarian system that is grounded in biblical doctrine, at least in terms of how they interpret it. So I'm not sure that we get anywhere trying to make them, make them consistent with the Bible.
Oh, yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah, yeah,
So
no.
that's
well,
what I would say about that.
well, one, let me pause and give you an applause because I really, really liked. What's wrong with my clap track? Why is my clap track not playing? There it is. There it is. One, great call. Honest to goodness, that was a great call. Love hearing you just talk about it. You have a great voice for radio. Two,
Thank you.
you're absolutely right. And this is what. That's like my trump card, no pun intended. That's what I hit at the end. At the end of the conversation, it's really never been about faith for them. It's been about political power.
Right.
And you hit it on the head. I mean, you just cut right to the core of it. But the reason I think it's worthwhile going around the bushes to get to that conclusion is because there are a lot of religious people who struggle with this because of their leaders, right? Their leaders have been telling them for a generation, for like 40 years, that this is the place they should go and vote for their religious values. And now that Donald Trump has presented this glaring opportunity, this glaring example of how that's just not true, I think it's worthwhile unpacking that for people who would hear it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you're right. At the end of the day, it's never been about faith to them. It's been 100% about political power as well as economic power. Some of them are making good money to take these people from the church.
Churches.
Yeah.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely the case. Thanks so much for the call. Make sure you call back.
All right. Well, thank you for your show. You have a great show, man.
Oh, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. I'm glad I took my time and took that call. That was a great call. Some great calls tonight. Great calls. All right. Let's see. I had a message here. Okay, got that. And boom, boom, boom. All right. Let's close. Let's finish out with this story about actually. Yeah. I'm going to do two stories. So in the bonus show, I'm also going to talk about marriage equality in Australia and the political posturing that has taken place. If you want to join at the expense of the LGBTQ community in Australia. So if you want to join us for the bonus show, we're going to talk about Mars, President Obama sending corporations to Mars, and LGBTQ rights in Australia. You can join the bonus show by becoming a patron, patreon.com/the BPD show. And we're going to record immediately after. My assistant, Max, I feel like a magician. My assistant is going to join us in the conversation, and you can get it. We'll have it up at about 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. All right. I've been getting into some arguments, and I've lost about 300 followers over this particular argument over Syria and the no-fly zone. Syria. So the good news, let's start with the good news, right? So the talks stopped between the high-level talks, diplomatic talks between the United States and Russia over Syria stopped as of last Saturday, but they're scheduled to take up again on this Saturday. So that's an accomplishment, right? We need everyone to be talking at the table. They had completely suspended 9 days ago after the ceasefire went down in flames. I'm sorry. That was the very worst place for me to have an inside joke on our side. But yeah, so but it's a great thing. The ceasefire is no more. We walked away from the table, but we're going back to the table. So they're going to be meeting in Switzerland this weekend, and they're trying to find a resolution to this 5-year-long, 250,000 deaths, 11 million people displaced. We have to find a resolution. Is it something that the United States is required to fix? Most people in progressive land would say no, right? Because we've intervened too much across the globe and we've caused more trouble than we have good. And that's the general sentiment for most progressives. But so some of the context of the meetings, so this U.S. State Department said that Kerry would discuss a multilateral approach to ending the crisis, including a sustained cessation of violence and the resumption of humanitarian aid deliveries. But in terms of intervention in general, and this is where we kind of get into the argument, the U.S. has struggled for a long time to find moderate allies in Syria. And those that are capable, like the Kurds, they bring additional problems to the table due to their own regional ambitions, right? A lot of people say, are we going to just arm the Kurds? Well, arming the Kurds has significant implications when you consider they want to become a state. They want to have sovereignty. They want to be recognized. And their territory crosses over so many nations that an armed Kurdish faction or resistance really poses territorial threats to other nations, which is one of the number one reasons the United States has not armed the Kurds. And then last month, like despite the antipathy towards the Assad regime, America's main focus in Syria is our fight against ISIS. And despite the humanitarian crisis that we see, as tragic as it is, it's not to the point where we're willing to get involved to end the civil war because of the humanitarian crisis. All right, so General Joseph Dunford, chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, when asked about a no-fly zone in front of Congress, he said that right now, for us to control all of the airspace in Syria would require us to go to war against Syria and Russia. Russia controls Syrian airspace. And some stats on what they have going on here. They've deployed highly capable S-400 air defense missiles and radars at its base at its Syrian base. It has brought in S-300 missiles, which have an additional capability against other missiles. Russian warships in the Mediterranean could add to the air defense shield. And for a no-fly zone to be instituted, the U.S. generally would destroy enemy air defenses from day one. So we already know the general premise is that a no-fly zone in Syria would require conflict with Russia. I'm going somewhere. So before we're going to finish, but I want to give you the rest of these stats. So on the flip side, a no-fly zone doesn't give us any guarantees, right? There's plenty of damage that can be wrought through tanks, through ground troops, through through other means. So the no-fly zone doesn't really guarantee the results that we want, but it's really about imposing a cost. It's really about the United States letting Russia and Syria know that they're not going to just continue to bomb the hell out of half of Aleppo and kill thousands of civilians without any repercussions from the international community. All right. So now the bigger argument is one that cost me quite a few followers, but it's cool. I don't agree with the fear mongering that I'm seeing from the left that automatically goes from no-fly zone, World War III, right? No-fly zone, nuclear holocaust. And we have embraced this oversimplified view of international relations, of just rational actors, of getting engaged with Russia. Because just like you have to ask us, why would we get involved to the extent where we are going to institute a no-fly zone? Is it in our best national interest? And if it's not in our best national interest, we're not going to do it. And so the next step is the humanitarian crisis significant enough for us to go in and risk a war with Russia? And so far, the answer has been no. So far, our approach has been hands off to a certain extent, right? Hands off to the extent where we're not turning the tide of the war in any direction. That being said, at what point will people concede that a hands-off approach absolutely means that two things? One, we allow Russia to have their way in Syria, which is fine, right? There's no big, but the second point is this, that the civil war will rage on in the foreseeable future. And as that war rages on, 250,000 people have been killed in 5 years, 50,000 people a year. Over the next 4 years, before the end of the first term of the next president, it's possible if people die at the same rate, there's going to be about 200,000 more deaths. That means there's going to be 200,000 more opportunities for images of dead bodies to be splashed across social media, of young children drowning, trying to escape the region, of children with blood all over their faces, in shock, to be displayed across the United States, and to strike up this political will to get involved. And the reason I'm saying it from that direction is because we have this huge assumption that America can simply not be engaged globally, and that if we just don't get engaged globally, that everything will be all right. And that is the most ridiculous assumption there is. The United States, whether it's manufactured or not, consent will come to the United States that we're not going to sit idly by and allow this to happen without us getting involved. I just don't see it. I don't see it because we're in a different era. We're not in the era where people are disconnected, where the masses are disconnected from the atrocities. We can see the atrocities real time. We can see the picture of the boy who was covered with blood. That picture got to my computer in less than 30 minutes from the time it was taken. Like, we are so connected to those atrocities that it's not going to be tenable for America to just sit back for 4 more years and watch 200,000 more people die. Now, I set that up for this question. If we're not going to do a no-fly zone, what is your solution? And that is the number one thing that people got mad at. They got mad at me because I called out Jill Stein, for this fear-mongering around nuclear war. No-fly zone equals nuclear war. That's not the case. That's not necessarily the case. That makes so many unnecessary and faulty and erroneous assumptions that it is below someone that we expect to bring a rational conversation to the national stage. If you firmly believe that, then you are required to unpack that for us and explain step by step, not to just fearmonger and say no-fly zone, nuclear war. And then more importantly than that, I think most of us can agree we don't need to do a no-fly zone in Syria. But the biggest question of the day is, what are you going to do to actually end the humanitarian crisis that's happening right now in Syria? Or are you saying we just going to sit back and don't get involved, right? Because I just hate incomplete thoughts. I hate when people don't give you the full picture, because saying we're going to sit back and not get involved equals about 200,000 lives over the next four years. Let's talk about the ramifications, because us pulling out completely does not end anything. The United States ending our arms sales that are getting there to Syria does not end it, because someone else is going to pick up the slack. Freezing accounts does not end it. It may end things in the long run, but it does not end this civil war that is in front of us every single day. So we agree on no-fly zone. I don't agree that it necessarily leads to nuclear war, but I agree that we shouldn't do it. The question is, what are we going to do? And I'm very, very disappointed that in the left, people that I roll with on a regular basis, people who complain about fear-mongering from Democrats, to engage in reductionism and fear-mongering without exploring and unpacking the reality that Russia is a rational actor. The United States is a rational actor. Hillary Clinton is a rational actor. And for you to jump from, and this is, I expect more. And I hate to be the guy lecturing. I feel like I'm lecturing tonight, but whatever. I expect more. I expect more from us who think. You're starting to sound like Hillbots. You're starting to sound like Donald Trumpkins, right? Whatever they call themselves, trumpeter, whatever the hell they call themselves. When you reduce something down to this person is just evil and she wants to start World War III, That is not a logical argument, and it does not belong in our circles, especially because we sit, I do too, on our high horses, and we critique whenever somebody brings us fatuous, illogical arguments. And to do that is just completely illogical. It is. It's completely illogical. That means that you believe that Hillary Clinton's number one goal in life is to destroy humanity. And if you believe that, then tell me, how are you different than Hillary Clinton's trolls who think that your number one goal in life is to destroy America and to fall in love with Putin and to go to Russia? I expect more from the left because we have more to give, and we can unpack. We can have the conversation, at least have the conversation to explain, Jill Stein, why do you believe that Russia's response to a no-fly zone for humanitarian purposes will be a hot war with the United States? And why do you believe that a hot war automatically triggers a World War III? Have that conversation for the world to hear, to forward the conversation, instead of just saying, well, do you want nuclear war? No, that's not, I don't do that. And if you do that, you can do better. You should do better, because we're supposed to be the logical ones. All right, folks, the rest is going to be on the after show. See you later.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. It's Ben Dixon! If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.